when you look at past administrations, with all due respect to obesity, when you have obese people making decisions from a fitness perspective and providing recommendations to an administration, I don't trust those recommendations. What I want somebody that lives it to give the recommendations because they're speaking from firsthand. So I believe in all my heart that President Trump is going to treat this as a priority. I can't speak for him. I can't speak for Dana, but I know the passion and the energy around both of them. And I just feel that we are about to take a turn to get America healthy again.
This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, hosted by Chrissy Van. Together, we're uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. On today's episode, Adam Sedlak, CEO of UFC Gym, returns to the podcast. As you'll hear, our conversation began before we officially started recording. We dived straight into a candid discussion about preparing to be a podcast guest, and with so many of you at the executive level participating in podcasts, I decided to leave this organic start in the edit, as Adam's advice could be valuable for your guest spots in 2025. From there, we explore the latest updates on the global expansion of UFC Gym, Adam's hot takes on industry trends for the new year, which includes insights into what his vast network of members are demanding. Plus, he gets candid about the potential impact of the new Trump administration on physical activity in America. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry thought leaders and influencers. I'm your host, Chrissy Van, and this is ATFW. We're kind of in that mode of rounding out 2024 and 2025, so that'll be the focus. But do you have any questions before we get started?
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even look at the prep.
Perfect.
So, yes, but whenever I do stuff, I never look at prep stuff because it's just better to talk, I think. Right?
Yes. Honestly, I prefer not to even send it, but so many people ask for it. But I'm so of the same mindset. I'm like, you cannot curate a conversation, or if you do, it just sounds. It's like when you go to some of the panelists and they're so scripted, and you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I used to back in the original days. Well, actually, why don't we just go to the podcast? Because it's better.
Yeah, honestly, I'm like, I actually love this. So. Now, if you're listening, you realize sometimes podcasts start without you even realizing it. And that is the case with CEO of UFC Gym's Adam Sedlak. And I kind of like where we've landed here because a lot of people sit in your chair as an executive and you get asked to speak on podcasts. You do so many of them. And we kind of started here where you're like, I don't read the prep. I just launch in. So talk to me about the why is that better? Because I actually agree to an extent.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Chrissy, with you. But, I remember growing up in the industry, the one thing that I could not do is speak in front of people. I literally would have foam coming out of my mouth. My heart rate would go up. The reason I don't have any hair is because of all that, tension. And I used to over prepare then, right? So I taught myself in order for me to be able to speak in front of people, I would have to become very scripted. So then I would prepare myself for days to say, okay, I'm going to learn every single line by heart and be able to just, replicate it out. But what I learned from that is it came across so insincere. Yes, thank you. I love the gym business because of it. It sounds terrible, right? And so then I thought to myself, why do I have problems speaking? And what I learned as I was self-reflective, it was my own personal insecurities, where you don't think that what you have to say is valuable. And so at that point, there was that intersection in my life to say either I keep on having this challenge and this issue, or I just say F it and just be myself. And if it's not good enough for people, it's not good enough for people. So at that point, I completely have not been scripted. I just speak from the heart. And sometimes I come across as an idiot. And sometimes what I have to say is profound. And so it's kind of a 50-50 ratio. So hopefully I can get more good than bad with you today.
Well, and honestly, I don't think it comes across as idiot. It's just us being humans. And to your point, I came from a traditional media background and I did branded sponsored content. So people would buy these slots having to speak on air. And oftentimes they would always have their public relations person trying to manage the executive or the spokesperson. And I get it. PR is all about making sure that the message is delivered, but they would script them so much. To your point, the minute I had them on air, they'd be like, "And hello, Chrissy, I'm," and and instantly you're like, you've just lost the audience. So I'm glad that you highlighted that, because I know so many people make the circuit and it's easy to overthink it, but I'm like, you aren't invited onto a platform unless you're the expert in your craft. And so I'm like, the knowledge is all in your brain somewhere.
Yeah, well, isn't the if you think about it, isn't the world kind of going this way? So when you think about politics, right? Not that we want to get into a major political discussion, but
Do it. There's nothing heated going on right now.
what we're learning now is that when you're off script, it's more authentic, and people like authenticity. The old political establishment, what was it? It was script, right? Everybody read off the teleprompter. Well, like him or not, Trump doesn't do that. He gets up there and they give him a teleprompter and he just ignores it. And I think people love that. They love the realness or the authenticity of what is being said. So I think it's beyond that. I think when you look at the podcast world and everything else, that the traditional media is continuing to become less significant. And what's taking its place is what I call the Joe Rogan effect, right? The Joe Rogan impact of just being real, being honest, and letting people actually come to their own conclusion versus me or versus traditional media saying, here's how you have to think.
No, without question. It's absolutely, and I think people's bullshit meters are just so strong at this point that if you are showing up in that disingenuine way, you can spot it in a second. So it's kind of like you're wasting your breath. I do, just with you talking about the Trump thing, always laugh because I imagine, especially having worked on the other side of production, everyone's scrambling, being like, oh, fuck, there he goes again. They must know by now.
It's funny because my assistant's like that, because she over prepares for me. She does an amazing job. And like, I have all these notes from you, right? I have everything ready to go on my desk. And she's like, you didn't look at one thing, did you? Here we go. And then she calls the marketing team and goes, get ready. We might have to release some type of release or, to protect things. And so completely agree with you. But that's what's fun about life, right? Let's roll the dice a little bit.
That's, to be honest, how I've ended up bouncing everywhere in life. So, you end up getting a couple scratches and bruises along the way, but it's all part of it. Dust off, pick up, and keep going. Now, Adam, the last time that we sat down, you were talking about UFC gyms obviously being in this rapid state of expansion. Obviously, this is a massive global brand, but we're wrapping up 2024. So how did it look? What were kind of the big successes and the big wins?
Well, lots of growth, especially on the international side. Of course, we did some domestic clubs. We opened, I think, 10 or 11 domestically, which have been incredibly successful. Our latest being in Tennessee, in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I think they opened up with, just under 3,000 members. So they're doing an amazing job. But yeah, so much is happening on the international basis. It's hard to keep up with. We just are about to announce Pakistan and Indonesia. So both those countries have been, fully executed. We're going to start development in those areas. But in the 42 countries we're now developing across the globe, we're looking at opening a gym a week on a go-forward basis. I think last year we opened another, 35, 40 locations in some of these international countries. And one of the things that I just got back from Macau 2 days ago, and in addition to being mentally all screwed up because of no sleep,
yet still saying yes to a podcast, so well done you.
One of the things I'm learning in some cases, some people are still dealing with the impact of COVID, right? And so that's still being felt out there in certain markets, especially
like in what capacities.
It's more about like as an example, I was in Taiwan last week, and it was more about all the restrictions finally being lifted. And so it was still part of the national discussion of COVID, right? Where think about the US, we haven't really talked about COVID in a long time, but it's
still on the bird flu. At least you're in BC, it's all the rage.
Exactly. But it's still a conversation in some of these markets. and it's now just getting to where it's behind everybody. It's in the rearview mirror, and it really taught me, and I continue to look at this, is that the U.S. I think is generally anywhere between 2 and 7 years ahead of the rest of the globe, specifically around fitness and culture and value proposition and so forth. And so the COVID thing's an example of that, where the U.S. really put it in its rearview mirror probably 18 months to 2 years ago. Some are still dealing with it today. So, but again, going back to your question on wrapping up the year, yeah, I mean we've added a lot of clubs, we've added some countries. And with the UFC and what they're accomplishing around the globe, which has been amazing. I mean, the UFC during COVID was doing so many of their events at the headquarters. Well, as we're emerging into 2025, they're now going to be a roadshow company where they're going to be all over the globe. And I know they're excited about that as well. Ironically enough, again, they just had a fight in Macau last week where we're about to open a gym the first gym at the same time in Macau. So the timing worked out really well.
Yeah, that timing works out beautifully. When it comes to that UFC branding appetite, where is the biggest growth globally that you're seeing? Because I mean, it is a household name for so many, but I'm just curious because obviously that type of modality is, like, I think of Southeast Asia comes to mind, where so many people go to train and fight Muay Thai. So where is that kind of large appetite epicenter, or really that biggest growth opportunity?
It's interesting because, UFC is, when you look at what they're going to get accomplished in 2025, they're going to be the dominant combat sports provider. And it's not just mixed martial arts, right? It's boxing. It's specifically just the modality of jiu-jitsu and so forth. And so they've obviously solved for it domestically, and they obviously are a global company. Their emergence in the Southeast Asia, I think, is one of the best opportunities as we move forward, because there's been other MMA promotions that have tried to, establish themselves as the dominant player, but nothing can touch what UFC does. When you look at the others and their materials and what they provide in regards to their promotion, and you go to a UFC event, it's grade A versus grade C, right? It's not that they do a terrible job. It's just average. But when UFC comes in, they fly their entire team, their production teams. It becomes an event. And slowly but surely it gets established as a dominant promotion or a dominant player within the region. So I think, my opinion, this is subjective, but I think, when you look at UFC's growth, I think you're going to see incredible emergence in Mexico, South America, Southeast Asia, and so forth, where they're already big, but I think they're going to get to the next level in regards to what they're going to accomplish. And then by parallel process, UFC Gym always can resonate both with UFC as they promote in different markets, even as a standalone, where UFC is not maybe been the number one position within that market on MMA. UFC Gym can come in and start seeding it and start creating the fan base for the UFC consumer. So yeah, we're super excited as we enter some of these newer markets, especially in the Southeast Asia, where there's been other MMA promotions involved. Well, UFC is doing an amazing job seeding themselves in play, and we're able to provide the tail and be able to come in there and speak to that both fan base and potential fitness consumer base.
Well, and you're not just seeding the fan base. So, I'm based in Canada. So here it's like every parent has that dream that their child's going to be the next famous hockey player. And they invest a lot into that path. But I did see, obviously, on the pressers and the wires come through, the partnership with ALTA Global that you have with the Warrior Training Program. So as I understood and had a quick read through it, it's potentially fostering new talent in the MMA space. So talk to me a little bit about the program and kind of that appetite of the consumer for a premium product, because it does have more of that smaller group vibe.
Well, let me say it this way. So, Chrissy, when's the last time you were in a fight in the octagon?
Oh, just yesterday, life's a
How'd you
fight.
do? How'd you do?
Winner, winner. No. Yeah, no,
Uh,
the last time actually would have been, and I mean, granted, it's weak for me to call it a fight, but I did visit your UFC gym in Huntington Beach and stepped into the octagon and had a fun little spar, but I don't think I'm taking home any belts anytime soon. I need more training.
so when you stepped into the octagon and you were just doing a workout in there, right? But when you stepped in, it felt a little bit different, right? What did it feel like when you stepped into that octagon?
Oh, you walk in feeling like a badass champion. No, I don't think anyone walks into an octagon for the first time and doesn't do that circle loop at first as if there's an audience out there. It's a vibe, it's a feeling for sure.
Yeah. And every one of us, I think, has this kind of inner fighter, right? And we all have different things that we fight for and different priorities that we fight. And sometimes there's mental internal fights, right? Where you deal with your own personal demons. Sometimes it's losing weight is your fight. And let's just say, you're 100 pounds overweight and you can't get it off. And it's just a fight to jump, get it off. And sometimes it's an actual physical fight in the octagon. And one of the, they're so connected. If you want to lose 100 pounds and and then when you compare that to fighting someone in the octagon, it seems extreme opposites, but it's not. It's the same thing. Personally, you try to find the best version of who you can become and you prepare yourself to be able to go take on that challenge. And so when you look at ALTA is a world-class organization. It's a public company as well, which they have huge expectations of what they're going to accomplish. But they're basically so synergistic with us where we can go out to any local trade area. I'm in Canada and they say, okay, Chrissy, what I want to do is I want to train you to be the best physical version of yourself. And I'm going to take you through a 20-week fight camp, right? And we're going to train 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And I'm going to prepare you to become a warrior in the octagon in 20 weeks. And then on week 21, we're going to have a huge promotion. We're going to have a huge party and we're going to have 10 fights on that particular day. And you're going to be one of them. Now I'm going to put you in headgear. It's going to be safe. You're not going to have a lot to risk, but you're going to be able to take all the skills, your fitness conditioning, your mental conditioning, the skills that you learn from MMA, and you're going to be able to put that to work against another human being. That is going to be your fight. I'm going to get you to the best version of who you can be to take that person on and watch what happens in 21 weeks. That's what's so great about ALTA is they're taking mainstream, the white collar executive, and they're saying, hey, find your best version of who you can be and let's put you in the octagon and let's see how you can do against other individuals that have the same appetite. So I'm excited about that. And then additionally, if to your point, if somebody wants to become a UFC fighter, this is a great way to start. Do this 20-week camp and go through classes and check it out and find the physical and mental experience of what it takes to be a true fighter and see where you come out at the end of 20-week period. So it's going to be a great campaign. We already launched it in Costa Mesa and Huntington Beach and San Jose and some other markets. And I would say by the middle of 2025, it'll be launched across the globe.
With the launch, have you had the chance to attend any of the first fights?
The initial fights in San Jose, I was not able to attend. I saw it on video. It was great. We're just now getting into the training classes for Costa Mesa and Huntington Beach. They actually launched in the middle of December. So I will definitely be there on week 21 to recognize those that are participating.
Yeah, I'd just be so curious obviously there'd be a huge physical shift if you're dedicating yourself to that level of workout 5 days over that many weeks. Anytime I've even encountered a punching bag, I felt like I have never worked out a day in my life instantly. Right. So it's a totally different level, but it would be so intriguing to see the mindset shift of people going through those 20 weeks. Like an experience like that has the potential to be completely life-changing. And I'm just curious your opinion, because obviously the fitness industry as a whole, we've gotten more collective on this message of it being social health, mental health, physical health. the UFC Gym's experience, how does it elevate those elements? Maybe what's the differentiator compared to the traditional gym experience?
Well, first, any gym is better than no gym, right? Let's be clear. So I don't care who you are, where you're at, there's a gym next to you. Join it, right? And it can only make you as an individual better. What we try to do with the UFC Gym campaign or promotion is really we identified how a UFC fighter trains. And we learned early on community was so important. The ability to trust who you're training with was important, but then also for a bunch of like-minded people to come together to focus on Chrissy becoming what she can become as a human being, to kind of identify your human potential. And we know nutrition and strength and cardio and discipline and MMA areas of skill are all very important, but we know if we attack it as a community, where there's a community group working with you versus just one person working with you, that you can experience much better results. And so we are community centric. The team, it starts with a team in a gym. If a team is not having fun, if a team is not inspired, if a team is not working with empathy, or if a team is not working as a team, it will come across to the consumer.
Without question.
Our priority is let's have fun at work. Let's be inspired to come to work. Let's operate as a team. And let's always be nice and empathetic. Let's try to care about one another. It doesn't always work that way. We're families, of course, and in any family, you always have a little bit of infighting. But as long as you hit it straight on and you deal with conflict and you talk about it, you can become a great team that then can work together to provide that same experience for the consumer. So if you, Chrissy, as a consumer, walk in the gym and you feel that family, community, inspirational, empathetic experience, it will hopefully motivate you to stay with the gym longer, to go outside of your comfort zone because you trust the team. And ideally, based on that, because you'll experience results a little bit differently, it'll motivate you to continue to train harder and work harder.
Yeah, it really is about treating the team so well. And that's such an easy, low-hanging fruit to actually make member retention numbers go up. Simply just cultivating that good team spirit. To your point on families and the infighting that can happen, I'm sure that's hitting a few chords because we're heading into the holiday season where everyone's like, yep, I'm getting ready for all the infighting that might happen at the holiday dinners. But if you cultivate that foundation, those things are easy enough to work through. And I like that you highlighted at the beginning, the most important part. Ultimately, we're trying to get people moving. And actually, I just was sky training into work this morning and I got off the sky train and there was a man waiting for a bus. And he was propped up against the bench, the bus bench, and doing push-ups there. And he had headphones in, or else otherwise I was just going to be like, way to go. Because seeing it in the wild, you're like, this is exactly what we speak to. And it kind of is that testament that it really is so simple. It's not impossible to get moving. And yes, you can do it outdoors, but communities like what you cultivate are so important because I know, I think it was 2 years ago now, I'd have to fact check myself, but it was the Surgeon General that declared the loneliness epidemic. I know being in the city of Vancouver, we suffer from a real lack of third spaces. And you have the sober curious movement that's becoming more and more rampant. So people are looking for places to gather. And I think that if the fitness industry really niches into being like, we are that community space and you cultivate that in the environment, it's going to be such an easier sell to get more people to actually walk in the door, especially if they push that agenda now, because you know, the January rush is going to happen again and the same numbers are going to drop off. But if you offered them that community side and really advertised as such, I think there could be a spin of the fulcrum. It might not be the full lever topples over, but surely we must get more in the catch basin after that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I think based on the market in the US that you're in, there's a 20 to 30% engagement level into gyms, right? And Canada's not that far off. It's on the top tier of countries in regards to fitness engagement. Fitness is intimidating, though. If you've never been into a gym, what you just see is what's on social media. And we all put on social media the best version of who we are on social media, right? I will, if I do a selfie, I'm not going to do a selfie in bad lighting. And if I don't have a 6-pack of abs, I'm not going to show my stomach, right? So
I will say that's the majority, but I have to say, if you do follow me, you have definitely seen sweaty ass magenta red face selfies, because I'm like, you don't look like an Insta model if you're working towards this.
Very good. Goes back to authenticity, right?
Yeah.
But listen, if you look at it from a new consumer perspective, and let's just say you're somebody that's 200 pounds overweight and you're super insecure and you're going, I got to join a gym. But then I look at all these hard bodies on Instagram and all these models and influencers, and I'm like, I'm not going to fit in there. And so step one is trying to figure out how to get people involved in that. Because so often than not, those same people will either not come in, not take the first step because it's just too intimidating, or they join something that really can't help them maximize their results. Stuff like community centers, don't get me wrong, are better than nothing, but there's typically no motivational team or structure or programming that helps them get the results that they're looking for. And what we know about people generally is people will always take the path of least resistance to their success, right? So you need to put them in a position where they don't have to make a lot of decisions, where they're super motivated and they feel very comfortable to opt into this potential opportunity. So, from a gym space and a gym standpoint, understanding that this world can be intimidating, it's really about how do you create that easy open door access where the consumer feels very comfortable. And I think through a community, you can do that.
Absolutely. Well, we are heading into 2025, which is bananas. This year went so quickly, but obviously there are so many conversations around the trends that are dominating the industry. So I'm curious to get your hot take on a couple that we haven't been able to shut up about this year. Got to start with GLP-1s. What do you think about their place in the fitness industry, where we've come so far, and where things might go heading into 2025?
So when you think about fitness trends, right? And how long have you been doing podcasting for, Chrissy?
Podcasting now in this sphere, 2 years, podcasting in general for 4.5.
And how often have you talked about fitness trends over the last 3 years, 4 years?
Oh, endlessly. It would be embarrassing if I had AI pull how many times those words had come out of my mouth.
So like last year's trends, right? When you were speaking of them, what were the primary trends?
Well, talking about the rise of AI was by far number one, because ChatGPT was in its infancy. GLP-1 definitely came up, but it was still this new beast that kind of had a trepidation notion to it. And ditching cardio, I would say, was the huge topic of conversation. Just the fact that those footprints were getting smaller and smaller in gyms.
And when you look at the year prior, right, and you look at, it was probably at that point virtual fitness, right, because we were going through COVID and so forth. And you look at the year prior to that, it was maybe turfs and boot camp or whatever it might be. And so I've learned a valuable lesson in the industry, that it's kind of like watching, when we were preparing for the election, all these political professionals about, what their take is on the election and what their opinion is on the priorities. And none of it comes true typically, right? It's a conversation, and it's great to have spirited debate. At the end of the day, it's the customer. It's the customer that says, here is what we want. And I think the better companies can be about listening and being open to what the customer truly wants versus where I want to take the company. Because where I want to take a company is completely different than what the true customer is looking for inside their appetite. So as I look at next year, I already have sent out survey information about what the consumer is looking for. And you know what I've learned?
Please tell me all the juicy details.
Is certainly everybody's intrigued with AI, right? What is that going to mean? And how is AI going to intersect with technology? And then the US has a different set of problems because of the protective laws, right? Is that in Asia, you can use facial recognition much easier than you can do in the US because of all of our specific laws. So certainly everybody's really excited about where that's going. The ChatGTP, profile is going to be something that's going to be a race, right? And there's going to be people out there that are going to be sprinting towards that to create these opportunities, not just for UFC Gym, for any fitness company that chooses to opt in. So certainly consumers are intrigued by that. But you know what it ended up being on the rest of the results is ridiculous fundamentals. Cleanliness of a gym. I mean,
yeah.
we talk about all these different things and innovations. At the end of the day, you know what people want? A clean gym. That's it, right? They just want a clean gym. They want equipment not to be broken and messed up. They want TVs to work and speakers to work and the temperature to be right in the gym. So I think one of the most important things that we can talk about is just getting done the basics of operating a business and making sure we're dotting our I's and we're crossing our T's. And I know that doesn't sound innovative. And I know it doesn't sound like, oh my God, I just solved the world's problems. But let me tell you, there's a lot to be said to just execute the fundamentals on the business. And then after that, you earn the right for innovation. And what I mean by that is everything you've just talked about, certainly there's opportunity. What my members are telling me is they want us to continue to perfect small group training and really try to figure out a way to gamify it. They like exercise technology, but they don't like dealing with multiple platforms.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to deal with 6 different modalities of trying to figure out what their expenditure is. They want one platform. And so when you look at Apple Health or whatever you look at these fitness communities, they just want to be able to plug and play. And so
so true.
Yeah. So
not to interrupt, but I've received different wearables and things like that only go with a certain app. And it's become a decoration in a little container on my desk of this thing that's collected dust, to be perfectly honest, to exactly your point. And I'm somebody that has this huge appetite to take things on in the fitness realm. And I'm still kind of like, it's going to take more than that for me to adopt it, or else I'm not going to fucking bother.
If it's a point of friction for you, you just won't do it because there's so many other easy things for you to do. I gotta compliment because, MyZone is an example. It was a different platform, right? So everybody has an Apple Watch or some sort of smartwatch. And what they did was they adapted. They said, okay, we will work with the smartwatch now. So now companies are learning to plug in and not be ego driven, where they say, nope, my platform is going to be the platform and you got to accept me or we don't need your business. Now I think people are learning to plug and play, to say, hey, let's just join the platform, right? So I think, again, going back to 25, I think one of the biggest pieces of innovation the consumer is looking for is to have the puzzle to come together to provide more simplicity of usage, where the consumer friction-free joins online, the consumer friction-free gets into the gym without having to do 35 different sign-in logins. How frustrated do we get on our passwords?
Oh,
I know for me, thank God my assistant has most of my passwords, because every day I get hit with, hey, you've had your password for too long, you got to reset it. Or, hey, you can't use the same password you used over the last 10 years or whatever it might be. And I spend half my day trying to find out what my passwords are. Consumers don't want to deal with that, right? They want to jump into the gym. They want to have a great experience tailored to what they want. And they want to have innovation technology intersected together to provide that experience for them. So I think from a trend perspective, it's not just the obvious stuff that we're talking about on value proposition points. It's also how you do it, right? It's the how of innovation that makes all the difference in the world. So can fitness companies put this puzzle together so somebody like Chrissy can just enjoy an amazing experience versus figuring out how to bring all these platforms together. So I think that's a big thing in 2025. And then also when you look at the modalities of training. And so again, movement is better than no movement. So we'll take that all day long. But we know that if a consumer does a treadmill for 20 minutes and they do weights for 20 minutes, that consumer typically works out for 8 weeks and they stop, right? They either hit certain plateaus or whatever it might be, and they just feel like they can't get better results. That's why this New Year's rush / member exodus always happens in Q2 and Q3 because people just lack results. And so when you start widening the value proposition points and you look at something, and obviously I'm self-serving in this particular portion of my comment, but when you look at MMA, right, you're not only, when you think about working out, Chris, and you talked about the octagon that you were in, what machine can mimic you going against another person? So whether it's jiu-jitsu or wrestling or even boxing and hitting pads, there is no machine on planet Earth that can replicate that. So
I'm really glad you said that, because my brain went, God, I work out a lot. I'm like, what machine is he going to say?
Whatever. I'm sure at some point it'll be invented, but there's no machine that does it. And so if you're able to not only train where your muscles are being manipulated in multiple directions that it would never have with traditional fitness, and you're thinking you can kick somebody's ass, right? You can defend yourself and protect yourself. That's huge. That's huge. You're not only getting yourself from a fitness perspective to an ideal conditioning position, but you're mentally saying, hey, I'm a different person. And so I think, and of course, my members join UFC Gym, a lot of them, probably half of them, because of the MMA modalities. And so they're more apt to message me in that way. But that's a lot of what we're getting is not only do I want to work out, I want a purpose for why I'm working out. I want to understand, my own personal challenge, and I want to be able to identify what different modalities I can do to attack that challenge. So I think certainly in regards to innovation, that's a big part of 2025. And then I would say the holistic workout approach, right? Meaning we went through this era of the boutique, right? Where it's one-dimensional value proposition point. And I think those are all fine. And those are all great for people that if you love cycling and you want to go to a cycling studio and that's your modality, that's great. But what do we know is that people get tired and bored of one modality after a period of time. And so they generally will cancel and they'll just stop working out, or they'll graduate to another modality. So if we can figure out how to provide multiple modalities of great value proposition points within four walls, it gives the consumer the ability to move and bounce around that gym to experience different modalities at one location. So we identified that from our consumer and understand that we needed to go much deeper into the recovery modality, right? So and most all gyms have the, simple massage chairs and Normatec compression, those types of modalities, but we're going much deeper. We've added cryo, we've added red light. We even got this pelvic chair that is amazing.
Oh, that space is supposed to grow exponentially too, pelvic floor.
Yeah. It's I just put one in a gym that I own and there's a line for it. It's been amazing. And I didn't think because I know what the intended audience is, right? Is for women that have had kids, but I started using it. And let me tell you, it's pretty good.
Your pelvic floor's on point now. Well done to you.
Got the best pelvic floor in the gym. I'm going to get my own t-shirt made. And
Excellent. We're going to have to come up with maybe a catchier label for the shirt, but we'll percolate. It's fun.
So, but I think, recovery continues to be a line of innovation, but I think recovery by itself in those modalities are going to continue to widen, where we're going to find new ways, not just physically to find, different approaches, but also I think recovery can be widened to mentally and how you create more confidence, not just on the workout floor, but also, with how you teach yourself and how you educate yourself. So I think that's going to continue to grow. The other big one that nobody talks about, and I think it's going to be more of a conversation with Kennedy stepping in the U.S., is nutrition. And I think nutrition needs to be a key innovative discussion point. And we obviously all know, calorie in versus calorie out, proteins, fats, and carbs, and all those things, right? We know
it, but look at the population. It's not practiced.
But here's the problem, and Canada's better than the U.S., by the way. I was listening to Rogan on this one about Fruit Loops, right? If you buy Fruit Loops in the U.S., it's completely different than Fruit Loops in Canada. You know why? Because Canada has an expectation of what you can put in those packages. And there's certain things that you cannot put in. All these artificial things that are allowed in the U.S. are not allowed in Canada for the most part. And so when you're eating food in the U.S., we are not eating well. We are the most obese country on planet Earth for a reason. It's because we put all these additives and preservatives. Everything that we eat in this country is just not good. It is not healthy, and it's counterproductive to the consumer experience. And so I think nutrition is going to be a huge opportunity, specifically in the U.S., but I think it trails in other markets as well, where how do we eat more organically? How do we get more nutrients out of the food that we're digesting? How do we improve our digestive systems? All those things are going to be critical to the experience of the consumer to get the results that we're looking for. So I think nutrition and more nutritional discussions and education and accountability and connecting with technology is going to be a big piece of 2025. And then beyond that, when you look at 2025, I think it's also going to be really much about how we provide labor in gyms and how we staff and expense gyms. Expenses are not getting reduced, right? And I can, again, have a political conversation with you about how California treats minimum wage. Well, now if you know how to serve a Whopper, you can go make $22 an hour at Burger King. It makes absolutely no sense, because now that same value meal, as I just got done talking about nutrition, but if I go buy that same value meal at Burger King, it's gone from costing $8 to $20. And so all our government has done is spread the cost back to the consumer, and it's impacting every industry. So even though they think it was only going to impact fast food, it's gotten wide, and it's impacting everybody. And so we're going to have to understand and figure out how to take a look at that labor dollar and how to become more efficient and how to maximize it to get and still get great returns to the consumer. Otherwise, you just got to spread the expense to the consumer, right? So if you take on the same headcount with the same expectation, but your labor goes up 20%, it's got to go somewhere, right? And so it either goes to the consumer or you get more innovative with how you deal with it as an operator. So I think that's going to play a very, very important piece as we get through 2025.
Those were fabulous takeaways. And I also appreciate that you did start with the most simplistic of the cleanliness in a gym. I think all of us in the industry, I mean, everyone kind of travels a lot. You probably visited gyms where you've gone, oh, dear God, this is a dirty ass gym. So it's like, for some of you listening, there's probably some low hanging fruit that's going to improve your bottom line. So start there. But there were so many great insights. And I know that you've said a couple of times you don't want to get political, which is completely fair, but we do have a new administration that's coming in. Do you feel now with this new administration coming in that there might be a better chance to improve the conversation around physical activity? What are your thoughts?
I don't think I know that there will be. And, I happen to be in a beneficial position because I have a relationship with Dana White. And Dana White happens to have a relationship with President Trump. And I do not have a relationship with President Trump, and nor would I consider myself Dana White's best man. But he allows me to have conversations with him, which are great. And all I know is that I constantly text him fitness stuff, fitness priorities and fitness expectations. And of course, we all agree in the US that fitness should not come with taxes, right? It should almost be a deductible, because all it does is create proactive reduction of expenses by people being more physically fit and taking care of themselves. And so I think when I look at Dana is an incredible example. If you guys haven't seen his before after, he's an incredible example of somebody that maybe was living his lifestyle to the best intent, having some drinks and going out and eating and all those things without intersecting it with the right fitness, to now being incredibly disciplined, arguably one of the most disciplined people I've ever met. He does a cold plunge every day. He works out every single day. His nutrition is completely on point. And no matter where he goes, he stays the course on that. And it has changed his life. He looks amazing. He presents amazing. You can just see the emergence of his generalized leadership based on how he's taking care of his body. And I got to think that Dana being Dana and Dana having the relationship with the administration that he does, some of that will cross over. And with Kennedy Jr., whether you agree with his positions or not, he's very much into fitness. Have you seen him at the gym? The guy is a beast. He's into fitness. He's into nutrition. And that can only help us. When you look at past administrations, with all due respect to obesity, when you have obese people making decisions from a fitness perspective and providing recommendations to an administration, I don't trust those recommendations. What I want is somebody that lives it to give the recommendations, because they're speaking from firsthand. So I believe in all my heart that President Trump is going to treat this as a priority. I can't speak for him. I can't speak for Dana, but I know the passion and the energy around both of them. And I just feel that we are about to take a turn to get America healthy again, to get America fit again. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to be a big part of the conversation, mainly probably driven through Kennedy and what he's going to do as part of the Trump team.
Well, and your point is so one that can be drilled down to the most basic of any of us that have experienced the transformative power of fitness. The minute you go through that life decision and decide to make it a priority in your life, like for me, I can distinctly remember I moved to Vancouver. I got really in love with happy hour. I ended up the most out of shape I had been. And it was April of 2016. I celebrated almost every year as my Fitiversary, because the quality of life, and it's not that things got so out of hand, but it was my mindset that starts to come out of alignment if your physicality is not within it. And then the minute you go through that process, you want to tell everyone, like, I have discovered the secret sauce of life. So to your point, when you have people in leadership that have experienced that same transformative energy firsthand, I think it's going to have that stronger voice and stronger power. And the nice thing is that I think the industry itself, and granted, I'm a little baby in the industry, but I am somebody that is an observer of life. And even in these few short years that I've had my voice behind the industry, I've seen this unification behind the conversation, and it continued to grow louder and louder. So at least now we have this alignment of people already elevating the message and being on the same page at a time that real change may actually be on the horizon. So Adam Sedlak, I have to say thank you so much, because I know you're coming off the heels of travels and feeling a little bit discombobulated as such, but because you are a fitness guy, you delivered this with pure energy and grace. So thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
I was told that we were doing a 24-hour podcast. That we were just
there you go. The marathon moment. I was the kid in school that always got moved desks because I talked too damn much. So you might be challenging the wrong person. If you want to go 24 hours, I can keep going.
I rescind my statement. No, it's great to be with you, and you're doing an amazing job. I like your energy and your creative look on this, and I wish you the best of luck as you continue to build out your platform.
You've just listened to the All Things Fitness and Wellness podcast, hosted by Chrissy Van. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry insiders and influencers. Together, we're on a mission for everyone to live a life fit and well.